You've tuned in to the most crazy rocking metal podcast on the air. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metal from the Inside.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Metal from the Inside podcast. This week, I am joined by none other than Phil Soussan, who is currently the bassist for the band Last in Line, which many of you know features some of the original members of the Dio lineup. But aside from his work in Last in Line, Phil has done some incredible stuff throughout his career and has worked with some incredible artists such as Ozzy Osbourne, Billy Idol, Johnny Halliday, Kings of the Sun, so much more. He's done so much over the course of his career, and I've really been wanting to get Phil on the podcast because I've really loved his work over the years, as I just mentioned, and especially his work with Ozzy Osbourne has meant a great deal to me, The Ultimate Sin and everything like that, and one specific song in particular, which I will touch on hopefully in a little bit to appease the major music fanatic in me, but I've really been looking forward to this, so thank you so much, Phil, for taking the time to join me.
You're welcome. It's great to be here, Sydney. Thank you very much. You picked on a couple of very interesting credits that I have, and you know, that Kings of the Sun album is a great record, and I really loved working with those guys. They wanted me to join their band, but then they were moving to Australia, and I just didn't think that was going to be possible. But it remains one of my favorite projects that I did. So it's nice that you mentioned that one.
Yeah. I feel like it often goes a little bit under the radar because I believe it came out right in the early 90s, but I feel like it was such a great project. I wish more people, were aware of it.
Oh yeah, great band. I mean, they had that one big hit, I think just prior to that, Drop the Gun. It was a single,
right?
And it's like a cross between Jeff's a little bit like a cross between a Billy Idol and an Angus Young and a Bon Scott or something. I don't know, but it was very AC/DC, and it was very kind of punk, and it was a really great record. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of just getting started, as a lot of my listeners do know, in the beginning, I kind of just always like to start out with just, how you've been, because, in the current climate that we're in, it's been a weird year. And I know that you've, of course, been a touring musician for, decades now. So aside from the fact that it, just must feel weird for you to be home for so long, have all this free time, I know that you have been up to some cool things. You've been working on some solo music, which I want to talk about a little bit. And of course, working with Last in Line, you've been doing these cool, live streams every so often, with the rest of the guys, as I know you guys are working on this next record. So a lot you've been doing over the course of the past year. So tell us a little bit about how you've been and what this, past year has looked like for you.
Well, I think I've been better than most. I've got to say, and I consider myself very fortunate or blessed, or both. That there have been other things going on. I decided to move to Vegas, and did that right when the pandemic was beginning. So a lot of this last year has been spent in relocating and resetting up. So I've really felt like I've been doing something. It's not like I've been sat down in one place just staring at the walls. And I know a lot of people have, and that's really tough on them. Part of the reason I think why we try to keep our fans engaged. Let's try to let them know that how important they are to us. If it wasn't for our fans, we wouldn't have a career. So we're all part of the same team. That's the way I see it. And so it's important for us to stay connected with fans. It's a very different situation to how it used to be back in the day before social media, and in the 80s and in the 90s, where you could write a letter to your favorite artist and you could put money that you'd never get a response. And now if you don't get a response, then it's very unusual.
Right.
So we have a much closer bond with people. And so with that in mind, we try to keep people engaged. But I do that, and then I just keep myself busy. I'm like a jack of all trades. So I like to do lots of things. I've got more hobbies than most people. And so whether it's cooking, or whether it's fixing bikes, or fixing stuff around the house, or recording songs or, whatever it is. I'm always trying to do something. So yeah, keeping busy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you mentioned cooking, and I was gonna say, you've been showing off your cooking skills online on your Instagram page. You do your COVID kitchen
Yeah.
series, and the 59-second gourmet thing, which was so fun that you started that because it kind of shows like a different little side of you. And
Yeah.
yeah, what prompted you? I guess, of course, the pandemic, but what kind of prompted you to start doing that? Because you've put some cool stuff up, honestly.
Very bored. I was just thinking, what can I do? And I always had this idea that I wanted to do a rock and roll cookery show, and I actually almost executed it a couple of times, but it's just not been right just yet. But doing it like this, I just thought it was a kind of funny thing. I remember thinking, it'd be cool to put something out on a video, and then I realized at that time you could only have like up to a minute of video. So I thought 59-second gourmet, that sounds pretty good. But I got to tell you, it's really difficult to cook while you're holding a camera at the same time because you're only using one hand.
Right.
I don't know if you've noticed, but it's very like disheveled. It's not a fantastic production by any means. And then sometimes I look at it and think, geez, you could have put a different shirt on or something,
Well, it seems like it's gotten like even more kind of seamless as like you've done it, because it's been about a year, right? So, I mean, I kind of feels like you have a little bit of a handle on, like the transitions between everything. So
Right.
you're doing a great job, man.
Oh, well, thanks. It's funny because I was telling my wife that I was going, it's really difficult to do this with one hand. And she goes, well, why don't you ask me? I'll film it. And I went, I never thought about it. But yeah, I might throw a few of them out, a few more out. They're just kind of fun things. But I mean, normally when I'm doing stuff, I'm a lot more meticulous in,
Right.
how I'm cooking and presentation. Here, it's just like throwing things in. Okay, I've sort of pre-measured everything because I don't have the time. Pardon the pun, but I don't have the time to do all this stuff. So anyway, that's been fun, and I do appear sometimes on a video show on an internet show on Tuesday mornings called Spill the Tea, which is a show for expats living in Britain. I mean, sorry, expats living in America, British people who are living.
Right.
And so it's very English, and they love those little segments. They actually put them up on the show every week, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really fun, and like I said, it's cool to see things like that, even like your cooking show, because it's having you guys at home now and having many artists at home now. You guys are kind of sharing different things, and kind of like I said, kind of showing like different sides of you, and what you do when you're at home. You don't spend often too much time at home, so
Yeah.
it's fun. It's really cool. So also, right at the beginning of the lockdown, right around this time last year, you had mentioned that you were, briefly beginning to work on another solo record, because I know you've had a couple in the past, and you released 2 singles since then. The first in November, that was titled "Please Don't Make Me Wait," and the second last month, that was titled "Fly Again," which are really cool tracks. They've got some, awesome kind of like funk bits to them, and obviously some really cool notable bass lines, which of course is a given. But I know you've done solo records in the past, like I mentioned. Was this something in the works prior to the pandemic, or, was it the pandemic that really kind of prompted you to want to do your own solo music again?
No. I've always sort of had solo stuff going in the background, and it's a lot of the stuff I write is very commercial. I mean, that's really my style. It works really well sometimes when you have that interpreted by a rock band, for example. It adds a different angle to what you're doing, and but very often it might not be material that fits in with something that I'm doing. So I tend to keep it on a side burner and think, well, at some point I'll put another record together. I was actually having a conversation with my friend Richie Cartson, and we were talking about this, and I was saying, I want to put another album together, and he said, I've just kind of been putting singles out because it's very difficult to make a compelling case to actually make it, create an album, put the album out, manufacture it and sell it and all of that stuff. And really people just want they want to hear the music. And, it's important, I think, to have a video element to the songs, so that way you can incorporate it on, your YouTubes, and you can have something that's visual as well. So I just took his advice and said, I'll just start finishing these songs one at a time and throwing them out. My studio's behind me. I'm actually working on 2 more songs at the minute. And so, it's a little challenging, I suppose, because I have to pretty much play everything myself, which is not a problem. I've done that before. My last album, I played everything on it myself. But it'd be nice to work with other people as well. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So it's a little like sometimes a little one-dimensional when you're working on your own stuff, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, like, because usually, when you're in a band situation, you like bounce ideas off of each other. It's kind of like a brainstorming type of thing. So I could definitely see how that might be a little difficult sometimes, especially for an extended period of time like this.
Yeah, it takes a little bit longer. I mean, most of the stuff I can hear in my head, but there are times when you say, well, let's see how this sounds. So you would record a bass part and then record a guitar part, or vice versa, whatever. And then you'd say, okay, well, let me change that and let me re-record that, see how that sounds, and let me adjust something else. And that takes a long time to do. If you're sitting there in a room with someone else, you just try it. But if you're not, you have to actually go through the process of recording it,
Right.
listening back, deciding if it works. So it adds time to the process. But as you do that more often, I've often said every artist should try to do a recording where they play everything at some point in their careers, because I think it really is an eye-opener to how all the instruments work together. It makes you, it really gives you some great arranging skills and production skills as well. So when you do go into a situation, all of a sudden you think, yeah, I know exactly how that's going to sound. I know what I want it to do, and I can hear it here, and you can give direction if that's what's required to be. So it's a really great exercise, It's very cathartic as well. You finish something, you sit back and listen to it and say, you know what, this is pretty good. I like it.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that you've been a songwriter for many years, and I know that, of course, I'm sure you kind of just mentioned you have songs, you kind of put them on the back burner until you want to use them for something. But, having this time, has it been really refreshing to be able to kind of be so creative, just kind of in a songwriting avenue? Because I mean, I know you tour a lot, you play live shows, but it probably hasn't been a while, since you've had the opportunity to kind of sit back, really focus on writing and that skill and that craft. So has it kind of been just a refreshing, time for you that way creatively?
Well, it's very strange, Sydney, because this whole thing has been about, wishing we had time to do some of these projects, but now we have unlimited time. The sort of the impetus has sort of gone. I mean, the drive to do things. Anyone who's creative knows that you sort of get most of your work done in the 11th hour before a deadline. That's when all of a sudden you have to get something finished. When there's no deadline, it's things kind of meander and drift off, and you're like, I should get to that at some point. So that's another reason why I've sort of done all these other side projects, because once I finish one of those side projects, or while I'm doing it, I'm thinking, you know what, I really should get back and work on that. And it sort of motivates you to want to do other things. There's a lot to be said for, constant activity being a driving force to doing things rather than sitting around. I'm just not a TV guy. I just don't sit there and watch TV and just, that's just not what I do. I mean, if I want to watch a movie, I'll sit down and watch a movie specifically, but for most times for my own entertainment, I'd rather find something else to do. And if it's not music, just the act of doing that sort of motivates me to want to get back to the music and do something else as well. So maybe that explains why I do all these crazy other things,
Yeah, because I mean, I know that you guys are also in the middle of working on this new Lost in Line record, which I mean, I believe, because I had Vinny on the podcast not too long ago, so we talked a little bit about, the progress on that, but you guys still have half of the record to finish, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, we've done about half the record, and we in a moment of, I don't know, coincidental chance or whatever it was, we were in LA, and I suggested, why don't we go into a studio that I work at a lot? Why don't we just go cut a couple of tracks? And we thought we'd go cut two tracks, and we all went in there and said, let's see what happens. And by some chance, we ended up cutting like 6 tracks, and we didn't know, but once the pandemic happened, we had backing tracks that we were able to work on, and that's how we managed to complete half the record. So those songs are done. I mean, they're really good. They're a natural progression, I think, from the 2 album. So if you take the 2 album and you sort of draw a line out somewhere into the future, it connects. I mean, you can see where it's evolving from and where it's going to. There's some differences again, and that just represents a, a constant development, a constant evolution of the band. We get to know each other better each time, and but the one thing that remains constant is the sort of DNA of the concept of Last in Line, which is also the DNA of the concept of early Dio. Just the spirit and the way in which the material is put together. We're using the same method that, Vivian and Vinny and Jimmy Bain, may he rest in peace, was using back then. And I'm chomping at the bit for us to get back in the studio and get on with the next 6 tracks as well. So that would be really fun.
Yeah, because I know that you guys are primarily a band. You don't do, a lot of internet or over, file sharing type stuff. I know you guys tend to, when you work together, you guys get in one room, you record together. So you guys haven't had the opportunity to go ahead and start on the second half yet, right?
Yeah. I mean, this last few tracks, we have been doing a little bit of that kind of remote recording and, as you described, file sharing type of work for want of a more ideal situation. But there's nothing like being in the same room as it, with everybody and just working on stuff. And some people, we make comments on each other. I mean, I'll make suggestions to Vivi on guitar playing. He'll make suggestions to Vinny. Vinny will make suggestions to me. Andrew will make suggestions. We all get involved with each other's parts. I mean, it is a collaborative group effort, and not to have those suggestions and those comments and those ideas coming from the others is a little odd. I mean, I know if I put a bass part down, I know I'm going to be proud of it. I know I'm going to think that I played the right part. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you didn't leave any ideas or anyone's ideas off the table. So, if Vinny turns around and says, "Hey, I think you should change this bass part to fit," that's really valid to me. And it's part of the nice thing about being in a collaborative band arrangement like that.
Yeah,
kind of miss that part of it. And we're trying to record this other song at the moment. We're doing it purely by remote file sharing, and it's tricky.
Is it that cover song that I know that you guys had announced that? Can you give us any hints or?
No, I can't. I'd have to shoot you. It's a bit of an undertaking, and it's a very well-known classic song, very, very old. So there you go. But we'll have that done soon. It's with Viv at the moment. He's doing some guitar parts. So as soon as he gets done with that, I think we'll be getting closer.
That's great. And
ask Viv, call Viv up.
I'll get him on the phone right now. I'll be like, I want to know what the cover song is. Come on, hurry up. Finish recording. Right. Come on. But I mean, I know you joined Last in Line, back in 2016, of course, after the passing of, Jimmy Bain, again, like you said, rest his soul. But I know you joined the band, and it seems to me, though, that you fit so well alongside, these players. But I mean, I know that you've also developed friendships with them over the years, prior to even joining the band. So for you, was it as natural as it, felt to watch you, join this band and kind of become a part of this group and this project?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Andrew and I had been working on a show for a few years, a show in Vegas here called Raiding the Rockfall, which was a sort of a casino show. So we'd worked together. Vinny and myself we've been in projects since 2005. We've had various different projects that we've worked on, recordings, bands. There's a band called Big Noise that we used to tour around with, like a celebrity band. And then prior to that, obviously we've known each other since Ozzy days. So I always tell everyone that, Ozzy and Dio were very much like sister bands. They sort of were in the same genre. They came from the same Black Sabbath, nucleus. And so while we enjoyed success in the 80s, we considered ourselves to be almost parallel bands. So we knew of each other's, we each knew our counterparts, and we had a lot of respect for each other. And so it was very easy for me to do that. Viv was slightly different because although I've known Viv for years, I'd never really worked with him. So this was like a new experience.
Right.
So that part of it was definitely novel.
Yeah, I remember that group that you just mentioned, Big Noise, which had, of course, Vinny on drums. And I remember I just saw, because I was prepping for this, and I saw a video of you guys. You did The Hunter, which is like one of my favorite Dawkins songs. I was prepping for this, and I saw that, and I was like, oh, I forgot all about this group. And I know you guys did some cool stuff in that time a couple years back. Is there anything, I know that was a little bit ago, but did you guys ever think about bringing that back, or kind of, doing some shows again with
Yeah, I
that
mean, if
group?
the opportunity sort of presents itself, it was, like I said, a celebrity band. We've had all kinds of different people in there. Joel Turner was the singer. Sebastian Bach was on one. We had George Lynch come and play guitar. And we just really play 3 or 4 songs from each of our repertoires, and just do it for fun. The project gets much better reception outside of the United States, I'll be honest with you. So we would do a lot of stuff in South America, for example. We do stuff in Europe, Spain, Canary Islands, I mean, all over the place. And one of the most remarkable times was when we went to Iraq and Kuwait in 2009, it was, and we entertained troops over there. And that was fantastic. It was just really, really great. It was great to be playing music with my friends. It's great to be playing those songs. And it was great to be playing for these people who just, I mean, I have a whole level of respect for the military, if for nothing else, that one morning they wake up and they've got this piece of paper and it says, that's it, we're gone for 15 months. No questions, no ifs, ands, or buts, and you have to go. And that's it. And, that dedication is, when you think about it, it's pretty tough. I mean, sometimes we think we got it tough being locked up for a year. These people are locked up in some forward operating base for 15 months, not able to see families, not able to see anybody. And so for us to be able to go there in person and spend time with them, we would do a meet and greet afterwards. And it wasn't like, oh, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. I mean, we'd literally have a, talk for 5-10 minutes with each person that we met. Sometimes these would go on for 4 or 5 hours, because you really wanted to make sure that you had some meaningful interaction. They wanted to talk as well a lot about stuff. They wanted to, seeing somebody from the outside world come in, they wanted to talk about their adventures and what's been going on. And the best you could do is listen. It was just a fantastic time, great experience.
Yeah. And it's interesting the point you bring up just in general about how that group is much bigger outside of the United States, which just seems to be how it is nowadays, right? Where it's, you go out into, again, like the England, the, Germany, the South America, all these different places, and rock is still huge, which is a point I bring up all the time. I'm like, why is it not like this here? But that's just a fascinating point, that even, a decade ago at this point, it was kind of on that way to kind of being the way the industry is now,
Yeah, I don't know. It was, there was a time I remember in the 80s probably where, America was the big market and Europe and everything else was added as an afterthought.
Right.
And now, I mean, Europe is a huge thing. And I actually remember a turning point. I remember having a conversation with John Bon Jovi, and he said, we used to sell, I forget how many it was, millions of albums in America, and so many, now we sell 6 million albums in Europe and 600,000 in America. And it was a turning point. And I think it was probably right around 93, 94. I remember him saying that. And from that point, it's never really, I mean, the biggest rock festivals are in Europe now. They're enormous. We get to play some of them sometimes. And I mean, you just think, where do these people come from? My dogs come to say hello.
Yeah, I mean, I did, it was funny. I did my senior thesis this past fall. I got my degree in music business, and I did my senior thesis, and the part of my senior thesis was all about the fact that, a lot, rock music is not as big here in the US anymore. I mean, you just mentioned those festivals like Sweden Rock and Wacken, and I mean,
all this.
it's 100,000 people flock out to these festivals, and rain or shine, they're in the mud and they're, headbanging and rocking out. And
it's more often it's rain than shine, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's more rain than shine, right? And I mean, I always bring up the age-old example of, watching those concert videos of like Iron Maiden in Brazil or like in Rio, and it's, you know, just like a completely different world than it is here. And, you know, I've been, you know, racking my brain, you know, I try to figure it out, and I have nothing else other than the fact that I feel like, and I've had some other people say this as well, that we're a little bit more trend focused here. You know, we kind of are all about what's in and what's not in, and, you know, what's popular, but
Yeah, I don't know if it's that or if it's just, you know, that I've always seen metal and rock as being styles of music that are always present, but then sometimes they sort of go underground a little bit.
right,
Sometimes they come up on top. And there were times, of course, during the 80s where that was the predominant, most popular music was rock here. And now it's sort of, you know, I mean, it's its own world. I mean, you can go to an AC/DC show, or you can go to a, you know, to any kind of really cool one of many different metal shows, and they'll be packed full of people, and yet that's not reflected in any kind of chart successes or current
right.
chart awareness or what have you. So that to me says that's like an underground movement. You know, it's there, it's very much present, and but it doesn't have any bearing on charts, on chart presence.
And I mean, I always look to, you know, because I want to talk a little bit about also your time in Ozzy, but like I always bring up the thing about, you know, they always play like, you know, Crazy Train at like football games and, you
Mm.
know, baseball games. It's always, you know, it's always there. It's always present, you know, maybe not like you said, like on the charts or anything like that too much anymore, but it is always there. And I had to, like I said, I want to talk about your time in Ozzy because, you know, that album specifically to me, again, kind of the little bit of the music fan, the major music fan that is of course inside me. It was a very special album to me, The Ultimate Sin, that you were a part of. And really, yeah, quick kind of funny story is, you know, I kind of grew up with this music, and my parents are huge fans. I'm only 21, so I kind of grew up, you know, listening to this music and having, you know, rock and metal, you know, be the soundtrack to my childhood. But when I was, I gotta say, probably 4 or 5 years old, my parents would tell me that whenever I would hear Shot in the Dark, I would lose my mind. And over the years, it's, you know, just one of those things from my childhood that I, you know, it's still what, you know, my favorite Ozzy song. You know, it was a huge hit, I know, but it's was very special to me, and that album is as a whole. So of course, I just wanted to thank you for writing that song, or helping to write that song, because it has played a very integral role in my life as a music fan. So
Well, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much. You know, one of the most amazing things about doing something like that is, I think the first time that we performed it live, um, uh, you know, I mean, I'd written these lyrics, and I'd worked hard on writing those lyrics, and then all of a sudden, just watching people not only knowing the lyrics but singing the lyrics, which just blew me away. I remember thinking to myself, how do they know? How do they know the lyrics? And it's amazing how quickly, you know, people become very aware about every aspect of a song once they hear it, once they attach themselves to it, once they identify with it. So that was quite a moment. It was a
yeah,
moment for me as well as for everybody else. So it was a great time. Playing with Ozzy was, you know, undoubtedly one of the. I mean, I am very grateful to Ozzy for the opportunity that I had with him, and the time that I spent with him, and it was an eye opener. And you know, he's of course he's a natural at what he does, and he's completely unique. There is no other Ozzy. So it was at the time it was very well received. We were the biggest band in America. So yeah, that
right.
was quite an experience.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, like you mentioned, just talking about, you know, hearing people sing those lyrics back to you when that song first came out, you know, you kind of look as the years have progressed, and I mean, that song is still a staple in Ozzy's set list, you know, to this day, up until, you know, last time I saw him back in 2018, he still plays that song. It still gets played constantly. It's, you know, one of those songs that, you know, almost everybody knows when it comes to
Mhm.
Ozzy's catalog. So, I mean, for you, is it kind of just crazy and I guess fulfilling or validating to you to kind of just see the legacy that has been created with that album and that song? Because, you know, we just celebrated the 35th anniversary as well. I just remembered that, you know, a couple weeks ago, and you know, that song is still super relevant in Ozzy's catalog.
Yeah, I guess that sometimes he plays it, sometimes Sometimes he doesn't, but it does get continuously played, and I do, I hear it on the radio sometimes, and it's kind of funny. It comes on, I go, wow, still on the radio. So that's cool. But the whole songwriting process, you can't gauge it by the success of one song or not. I mean, that's not why we write songs. And very often we write, I mean, I've written a lot of songs that have not had um, uh, anywhere near the same kind of public broadcast, but I think are extremely valid as well. The songs I'm very proud of, and you know, you have to, my gauge now. I mean, listen, it was a great thing to happen. I mean, you can't have that. You can't expect that's going to happen every time. It's a wonderful thing when it does. But when you go back to writing songs, the idea for me is when I've written a song and I sit back and I listen to it, and I feel like it's really helped me understand what it is that inspired me to write the song in the first place. If it's an experience, if it's a good experience, if it's a bad experience, if it's a life event, if it's something I just don't understand and I'm trying to put it into words, it's almost like a therapeutic thing. So I'm trying to write the song and I'm trying to understand what I feel. And when it's right. When you listen to the song and you say, this really sums up how I feel about this. And you get some kind of closure on it. My wife's a therapist, and she said to me one day, she goes, "You ever consider going for therapy?" And I went, "Why would I want to do that? I just basically talk out all the ideas I have for writing songs. I wouldn't have anything to write songs about anymore." So there's a therapeutic side to it.
Yeah, and I think I can even see that, especially with the singles that you just released, in these last couple of months. And, the great thing about that and about music as a whole is that, listeners can take away different meanings and different, just subject matter from these songs. And, for me, when I listened to these, I felt that they, because I know that the first single released back in November was kind of targeted towards, the shutdown of the live music industry and everything like that. But I feel like both of them in general just kind of could really be related to the kind of, unique experience that we've all dealt with over the last, year. And, I know that that's, when you wrote these songs and recorded them. So I think that, sometimes that subject matter, translate and also can, be picked up by listeners in different ways,
Yeah. I mean, Please Don't Make Me Wait was funny because, I'd had that idea and that title for a while. And it was a title that was waiting for something to write about. Makes sense. But I had the title and I liked the idea of having to wait for something. And there were a couple of different ideas that I was going to hang on to that. And then I remember sitting down there one day and I was thinking, you know what? I'm living it. This is it. This is what we're living. Everyone's living like, don't let us wait to get on with our lives. We want to get on with our lives here, and please don't make me wait. And the song wrote itself. I just wrote exactly how I felt. And it became, some people at radio stations over here consider it to be a bit of an anthem to the lockdown, not to the lockdown, but to the lack of live entertainment, the lack of live music, live venues. They identified with it. And, that was one of those songs that just kind of wrote itself to me. Fly is a different song. Fly is something I've been working on for a long time. And it was just, about, helping somebody with their own life, trying to be there as a friend for someone. So I think that was something I wanted to, put across as well. Yeah, you definitely have to sit down there and think about what the inspiration is. And then the hardest part about writing a song, I tell people when writing songs, is you write a song about an idea, about something you feel, and then you put it down. And then the hardest part is to try to extract yourself out of it. Because the last thing you want to do is give somebody a song that says, I fell in love with this girl and she left and broke my heart. Everyone's, yeah, that sucks, whatever. They don't really identify with it. But if you can take yourself out of it and put the rest of it there, then other people identify and say, well, that happened to me. That's my story. It's exactly what happened. And once they identify with it, then I think you've made a connection.
Yeah.
That's how I look at songwriting.
Yeah. I mean, like, personally for me as a music fan, I'm a huge lyric person. And that's how I often relate to different songs. And I mean, not every, song's lyrics, grab me in a personal way, but those that do, yeah, they're like just vague enough, just specific enough, just, that enough of what can make a song relatable. And so I felt that way. I'm sure you have as well, not just being a songwriter, but a music listener, to many songs over the years. And I think you're completely right. It's just so interesting to see how people can take the words you've written, that you wrote about a specific experience, that you were going through or you were dealing with. And, they can kind of make it their own.
Yeah. Yeah. And, sometimes it's just a changing of a word, I just used an example of, you fell in love with some girl and then she left you and broke your heart. If I say that, it's very polarized. It's just one way. But if I turn it into a question, have you ever fallen in love with somebody who left you and broke your heart? Now all of a sudden it's about you. It's not about me.
Right.
It's about someone else. And so just changing that juxtaposition a little bit is all it might take. But there's some lyrics which I've written I'm very proud of. There was a song called Broken Machine that I wrote for Steve Lukather. It's one of my favorite lyrics that I've written. And it really was something that took a long time to write because I was trying to hone in on what exactly I was feeling about this particular situation. And so, and when you've done it and you've managed to take yourself out of it, so many people came up to me and said, hey, when we were working on that record, Steve was good friends with the late great Eddie Van Halen, So Eddie was in the studio with us when we were mixing that album, and he pulled me aside on one occasion and said, that song's me. That song is me. And I thought, well, that's great that you can identify with it. And then I ran to Alex, and he came up to me and goes, hey, let me tell you something. That song's me. I have, and Luke said to me the same thing. And all these people would come up and say, I really identify with that song. And that made me feel great because it not only, it made me feel that, I wasn't the only person who had this kind of experience or whatever it was. And I'd written something that a lot of people could relate to.
Right.
And ultimately, when you listen to music, when I listen to music, there's times when music makes me feel better about something. It makes me feel happy, makes me feel, sometimes makes me feel sad, but sometimes makes me feel better about something that I'm going through. And so just that identifying with someone else is a great thing. And that's really art, isn't it? I mean, I've got friends who paint. I can't paint for shit, but they paint, and Randy Castillo was a great painter. I was painting in my studio, but he would say the same thing. He'd say he put his emotion into these paintings. When people would see the paintings, they'd feel the same emotion that he had when he was doing the painting.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's art.
Yeah.
And like type of communication, right?
Right. I mean, but it's kind of all, cut from the same cloth, it's you're just describing, music, especially in lyrics, it's one of those things. If I hear a song that I relate to, and it's something that, whether it's about a happy subject matter or a sad subject matter, like you said, being able to identify, and it's almost like this sounds so cliche, but like to hear something, like somebody else is going through that. I'm not the only one that's gone through XYZ or has had XYZ feelings, happy, sad, angry, whatever. It can be, kind of just relieving or, refreshing to know that somebody out there, whether it's a, multi-million-dollar songwriter, or, just a song that your friend wrote or something, that somebody out there can feel, the same way that you're feeling. So it's
nice. We all have the same things. It doesn't matter what you sell, who you are. We still have frustrations. We still have anger. We still have sadness. Still have all of these things, and this is what we write about. We write about these things, and doesn't take anything away from being slapstick either. I mean, if you want to write a song that says the do the da da da, I mean, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that as well. There's stuff that's just fun.
Yeah.
So I think you have to have a little bit of all of these things together. And as a songwriter, I don't have one sentiment. I'm not like an angry person or a happy person. It's just a big bag of, it depends on what side of bed I got out this morning.
Right. So you mentioned that you're working on 2 new songs right now, and you are taking kind of, as you mentioned, the approach of kind of releasing a single at a time. So do you know when we might hear some of these? I know you're still working on them, so maybe somewhat in the near future?
Yeah, I've got one track that I'm a song called Nobody's Fool, and it's a really tough drum part. I've been trying to play the drums on it, just not that good. So I've decided to program it, and the program is sounding much better. So I'm going to do that this afternoon and finish that off. And but I want to create a little video for it as well. So that usually adds a lot of time to the process. Oh, a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
maybe. The other song is it's a great, a really cool, exciting track, and it's a little bit more, my sort of funk background, but a little bit more, I don't know, blue-eyed soul kind of thing, and but that needs to really be written. It's not quite finished yet. And then there's a whole bunch of other, I've got a drive and it's got all of these things, and they're all called things like idea number one, idea number two, they just have like very creative titles, and you just kind of work through them. And it's nice, so you go away from something and get away from it for a few months, and you pick it up and listen to it. So yeah, that's really good. Yeah, you get inspired to want to finish it. So sometimes if I'm working on a song and I've taken it to this point and I don't seem to be able to take it any further, I'll just put it away and come back to it.
Yeah. So you're kind of releasing them as singles. Is there any plan to eventually have it add up to an album, or are you kind of
Yeah.
just, yeah?
No. Yeah, I'd like to put them on it. Maybe I can get it to where I have an extra 3 songs or something, or 3 or 4 songs, and actually create another record. I was really proud of when I did my solo records, because I made them look really good, and they are like kind of almost collectible. They 6-panel gate digipack gatefolds, and lyric book inside, and all that kind of stuff. Because I still have that thing from when I was a kid, and we used to go and get albums and read the album covers and carry album covers around. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. We'd go to school, and you'd have an album cover under, or a bunch of albums, and you just walk around with these albums. It's the most stupid thing, because where are you going? You're not going to play them anywhere. You just take them to school and take them home again afterwards. But it was almost like a badge. It told people who you were, what you were into, what kind of music you liked, and then people would identify with each other based upon liking the same styles of music, or the same types of. Somebody would occasionally have an album that was really obscure, so you've like an Alice Cooper poster behind you. But when the School's Out album came, that was just like, wow, look at this thing, it looks like a desk.
Right.
How cool is that? And I remember that. But that's something that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, what do you walk around with now? Do you know what the capacity is of my phone? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't really get to see what people like,
It's crazy. I had a conversation today with somebody about that. And, we were talking about vinyl. And I mean, I started collecting vinyl, a couple years ago, because, first it was me going through my parents' old records. And I mean, I grew up in a digital age, unfortunately. So, when I saw vinyl records for the first time, and I feel like, that's one of the only good things about my generation, bringing a lot of, like vinyl back and things like that, is I think that, being exposed to that, and being able to open it up and see a gatefold, and like see, first thing I thought of was like the Love Gun and Kiss's Love Gun, and, things like that made the record an experience. You put the record on, and it was more than just, putting it on and forgetting about it or streaming it. It was, I have to put it on the turntable, and I have to put the needle on, and I have to, I'm looking at the big imagery and the artwork and all this cool stuff. And, it's not the same when you're looking at it kind of, like you just mentioned, it's a little square picture on a phone, it's not the same.
Yeah, and the whole idea of flipping between tracks and moving on to this one, we just didn't do that. You put the record on, and like you said, you put the needle on, and then listen to half a side of an album, and you would listen to it, and you would read the album cover, or you'd do something else, whatever. But when it came to the end of that, you'd have to turn it over or put another record on. But you didn't just go, oh, no, okay, let me do the next track, or let me go back a little bit. It was a process. It was like, it was like a show. It was like a show. It's like a TV show. But you went through these songs. And some of my favorite albums almost, they almost played like mini movies. If you listen to a Queen album, I mean, right? You've got all these different sounding tracks, and it's like a musical. but without the picture, you know?
Yeah, and you're like, we kind of go back to, now the way the industry has evolved, and yeah, kind of now it's releasing singles, and I think that part of that, being able to flip between tracks and not have to listen to a whole album is kind of has what has made that evolve. It's, you used to have to listen to the whole record, you used to have to buy the whole record, you'd have to wait in line and buy, or go into a record store and buy the record without even knowing what it sounded like, and you'd have to come home and put it on. And it's not like that anymore. But I have my fingers crossed, their vinyl's kind of coming back, and I hope it's not just a fad, as some people say. I hope it's something that kind of carries over the next couple of years, because I think it's
it's not a fad. It's not a fad, and I think what it is it's an alternative way to enjoy music as well, because it is a different type of experience. It's as you described it. It's a different listening experience, and it's a different acquisition experience too. And it's funny you would say that you buy an album, you wouldn't hear it, but I'm going to date myself here, but back in the day, it was record stores had listening booths.
Yeah.
You could take the album to the front and say, I want to hear this, and they'd put it on, you go listen to it in headphones, and you'd spend hours. Or I was a kid again. He wants to hear every album in the store. And I would listen to all of these records, and then eventually, I'd pick the one or two that I was going to buy and come back again in another week and do the same thing all over again. I spent hours in record stores, hours. I mean, just going through all the album covers, reading everything. It was, it was so cool. And it was just an experience which a lot of people don't experience or haven't experienced. It would be great if people discover that for themselves. Yeah. There are record stores in every town, in every city in the world, and you can go and find that obscure record store and at least experience that and see if it's something that adds that brings something to you.
Yeah.
So that's my hope. That sometimes I talk to people who are unawares of this. I said, just go and do that. Go into a record store, wander around, for a couple of hours and see what you find. It's kind of cool.
And I mean, nowadays, especially for me, I'm a collector, and I go to record stores all the time, and I mean, I go to both collect records that I want and also buy new records or whatever. But for me, there's no better feeling when I'm like looking for a record, and you're searching through all the stores and you finally find it.
Right.
And it's funny because I talk to people and they're like, I just buy it online, but I'm like, you're missing it. Like, you're missing the hunt. Like, you can go and like search for it, and then when you find it, it's that like a magical feeling of I found it. Like it's a whole experience. To me, it's almost like a whole kind of like culture that kind of exists in these like little stores and small towns or cities. It's a whole thing. It's cool.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. You find that record, it's like, got it. That's what I was looking for, but and then you take care of them as well. You really do.
Yeah.
You have your records, and I'd be like meticulous about the covers, make sure they were all in plastic and
Yeah, I have my this was my dad's. I have my ultimate.
Wow.
And this was one of the records which he kept it in very good condition. I normally have it in plastic, but yeah, like this is one I was very lucky. I didn't have to find it because my dad just gave it to me. So
that's awesome. It looks in great condition.
Yeah, he kept it in pretty good shape. But stuff like that where it's that's also another thing, is if you find them and they're in really great condition, it's like, yes.
Right.
Such a great feeling. Well, before I let you go, at the end of every single one of my interviews, I kind of ask the same 5 questions. They're called the Metal from the Inside 5, and they're kind of just questions that are kind of a little bit more vague, just to get my audience to know my guests just a little bit better. So the first question is, if you weren't working in the profession that you're currently in, so obviously bass player, songwriter, musician, what do you think that you would be doing?
Chef,
yes.
Probably chef, maybe photographer. 2 things I really became very passionate about. But they're both, well, being a chef, actually, I owned a restaurant. I owned a restaurant in Los Angeles, a Japanese sushi restaurant that was a very kind of high-end, traditional Japanese restaurant. So we didn't have like a lot of rolls or anything. It was just traditional sushi, and it's very much like music. you're entertaining. When you own a restaurant, that's what you're doing. You're entertaining people. There's nothing, trust me, there's almost nothing better than owning a restaurant and watching people come in, sit down, and have a great evening, have a great time, have a great experience with their friends, and going over and meeting them and, you know, buying them a drink or whatever, or giving them stuff on the house, and watching them come back again because they had such a great time. It's really kind of like entertaining as well. So for that reason, I think that's really what draws me to that.
Yeah. Would you ever think about trying to own another restaurant or something like that?
Not right now. No, when the restaurant got sold, I had partners, and it just got, the restaurant had to get sold because my partners were not really motivated to want to stay in that business, and
Right.
I didn't have a choice, and I was really bummed. But it got sold, and then it wasn't just a couple of years later that I'm looking back going, well, that was probably a blessing in disguise, because I don't know how I'd have managed to keep it going through all of this.
Right. I mean, now you have 59-second gourmet and COVID-19 kitchen, so I think that you're doing just fine.
Yeah, well, you can now do more than 59 seconds as well, which is
Right.
a dampener on my whole concept, but
Gonna have to change the name to however, I don't even know how long.
1 minute gourmet.
Yeah, 5-minute gourmet, right? Reminds me of like that Rachel Ray's like 30-minute meals, like way back on the day, like the Food Network. It's funny.
Oh, right. Yeah. I used to love the Food Network.
Yeah.
I used to sit there and watch that over other TV shows. And a lot of musicians, we would closet Food Channel watchers. I remember that Slash was as well. I was talking to Slash about it. We were talking about it one night, and he said he confessed to me, because I like the Food Channel.
I love that that's like a confession. Like it's something
right.
that the rock guys are like scared to say, that I go home, I go back to my hotel room and I watch the Food Network. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Back in the day, there was a little group of us that would meet every Tuesday night at a Mexican restaurant around in LA, and we would just get together. And one day I was talking to him, and he told me, I watch the Food Network. Okay. It's like Foodies Anonymous or something, right? What do you call that? FA.
Yeah, it's almost like if I admit that I watch the Food Network, it makes me a little less metal. Like
right.
they can't know that I watch the Food Network.
Exactly. These guys are entertaining too. Some of these chefs, I don't need to tell you. They're entertainers. Absolutely.
And I mean, it's like, it's funny because a lot of these like chefs too who have these shows on Food Network, they become like personalities themselves. You know what I mean? They have, like first one I thought of like Gordon Ramsay. He's his own like he's his own personality, like you said, his own like entertainer. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So the second question I have for you is, what is something that you wish everybody knew about you? So I always kind of say, like, is it something that's kind of a secret talent? Is there like a guilty pleasure music that you listen to, like something like that?
I don't know. I think it would have to be. I was on the road to being a doctor. I was going to pre-med, so I have like all my advanced education in sciences, physics and chemistry, and biology and mathematics, and so I'm into a lot of that stuff. The two subjects that I kind of loved very much but failed at, well, actually the one subject I loved very much but failed at was English literature. And it's really ironic because I love Dickens and I love Shakespeare and I loved all of that stuff. And it's what I've chosen to make my living at. And so I was sort of scratching my head and thinking, well, I would really like my teachers back then to know that I've made a really good success out of what they failed me at. If that answers your question.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm like the complete opposite. If you put a math problem in front of me, man, somebody else has to solve it. I have no idea. It's really funny. I feel like I've talked to different people and like friends and things. It's either you're really good at like math and science and you weren't too great at English, or you were really good at English and you weren't too great at math and science, like in school.
There's always been a correlation, I think, between math and between music. And some people have tried to identify that as being that music is somewhat mathematical in certain aspects. And I have a tendency to agree with that. although it's not that obvious. It's definitely a little bit obscure. But math was something that was just. I mean, we have a different education system in England. We have what's called advanced level exams, degrees, whatever you want to call them. And so I have all of these advanced level degrees in all of these sciences, but music was up there as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're connected or correlated.
Theory is a little bit, when I took music theory as well. I mean, if you're really kind of getting into like the theory aspect of music, sometimes that can be a little, kind of similar to, mathematics when it comes to like the way the brain works and kind of processes it.
Well, the brain identifies like notes based upon their frequency, and there are correlations and patterns. And if you double the frequency, you have an octave, and if you triple, and so you have this, which is inherently mathematical.
Yeah.
But you interpret that as some kind of an identification. What makes you hear one note and hear a note an octave above and think that they sound the same? What does that? I don't know. I don't know that it really sounds the same. I think it's your brain says, well, these can be both divisible. The high frequency can be divisible by 2 and give you the lower frequency, and so therefore we relate to it as being it must be the same note.
Right.
And in that respect, I suppose you could make that case. But it's interesting, right?
Yeah. That's a cool fact. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The third question is the age-old question. If you were stranded on a desert island and you only had 3 records you could bring with you to listen to, what would they be off the top of your head?
Have to be, there's a Zeppelin album in there. I'm not sure which. If I had to pick one, I would probably say Physical Graffiti. A second album would have to be Hunky Dory by David Bowie.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, that's an album that made me that just opened my whole mind to what it was I wanted to do. And the third album would have to be, I'm just trying to think of something that I keep listening to all the time. Oh, it's got to be a Steely Dan album. Anyone, Asia probably. I mean, it's a toss up between that and the Sun Sessions Elvis Presley recordings. So, there are too many records that I like.
Oh,
I mean,
there's so many. It's so hard to pick. I'm really shocked though to hear Hunky Dory. I haven't heard anybody say that. That's one of my favorite albums of all time as well. It's so good. I mean, I know it's kind of cliche, but I mean, Life on Mars is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's just perfection.
There's a really great story about that. I don't know if you care to hear it, but Bowie was pretty much a folk songwriter. That's what he was, and he created such a unique style of music by attaching himself to people who were very, very unlikely in terms of musicians. Whether it was Mike Garson, who played piano, who was a jazz guy, whether it was Robert Fripp, whether it was Mick Ronson, whether it was whoever else. And he always did this and managed to create something very unique. But he was at heart a folk writer, and he was approached, I think it was Warner Chappell's, his publishing company approached him, and they said, there's a guy called Claude Francois, who's a huge, huge French artist. He'd be like the French Frank Sinatra or something, right? And he had a huge hit with a song called Comme d'habitude. And you'd recognize it, of course. But he said, we want you to write English lyrics to this French song so that we can have an English hit with it. And he started writing the lyrics, and he wrote this thing. And at the 11th hour, they turned around and said, sorry, we've given it to somebody else. We I don't know, for whatever reason that happens in the music business. Well, we maybe owe a favor to someone. They gave it to Paul Anka. And Paul Anka wrote the lyrics, and the song became My Way.
Yes.
Right? Okay?
Yes, I have heard that story before, way back when.
So Bowie, not being a man who wanted a good idea to go to waste, said, well, screw him. I'm just going to take the lyrics I wrote and write it around the melody of that same song and rewrite that same song. And he wrote Life on Mars. So when you listen to Life on Mars, it sounds very similar to My Way.
Yeah.
And that was the inspiration for doing that. It's a great song.
So incredible. Just that entire album, David Bowie was one of my most influential, just musicians and people. And just
absolutely
incredible record. Yeah. The fourth question I have for you is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
To my younger self, I'd probably say, that's a really tough one. try to sort of educate myself more on how to become successful in the world, but not through one particular aspect of music or whatever. I mean, how to survive in the world. That, you know, I see so many people around me who are brilliant artists and what have you, and struggling. They really, really struggle hard. And I learned something which they don't teach you at school, which is home economics, which is how to save, how to set yourself up, how to set your life up, how not to do stupid things. Nobody teaches you that stuff. And I've been smart enough to learn it, and I try to help my friends as well. I help them with setting up savings accounts and with investment advice and all of that stuff. And I think I inherited that from a gentleman who was very dear to me. He was my godfather, actually, and he always taught me some common sensibilities. If it's advice for myself, I would probably have started to do that earlier. But I certainly love to share that advice with anybody I see. I mean, if I see young musicians, I always tell them, hey, you know, always, what's that great saying? Spend what you've got left after saving, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Don't save what you've got left after spending. You know,
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, you know, build yourself a savings, build your retirement, work towards that. Then one day you don't have to be successful, but you have your home, you have yourself set up, and you can sit there and write songs on your own.
Yeah.
You know, on your own dime.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I'm lucky enough to have parents who taught me, you know, from a very early age when I would start getting allowance, you know, like to say, you know, saving things and, you know, budgeting stuff aside if I, you know, wanted to buy an ice cream at school or, you know, something, you know, and even in simple stuff like that, you know, it eventually kind of, you know, bigger things. I have student loans now and stuff like that, and, you know, kind of managing that type of thing. So I completely agree with that. It's an important skill set to have.
Yeah, and like I said, nobody teaches you that at school. They should teach you that at school. They should say, okay, now we've got the home economics class, whatever it is. Like you said, budgeting. You know, if you get X amount through your work or whatever, you've got to budget this. You've got to learn how to take care of your house, your you know, your business, the personal business. If there was anything, I don't think there's anything else I would, you know, I'm quite happy with everything that I did and the way that I did it. Not trying to sound full of myself or anything of the sort. I think that, you know, if there's one bit of advice, it's don't take everything, you know, I take things very seriously as well. Sometimes you need to kind of relax a little bit, not take things too seriously.
Yeah.
I get very worked up about things and get frustrated with things. And it's like, hey, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. The outcome is not important. The journey is what's important.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, I mean, you know, kind of everything happens for a reason. And, you know, if you went back and changed anything in your life, you know, you'd have a completely different, you know, experience.
Sometimes it's very difficult to see that reason, you know. So there was 1994, there was a terrible earthquake in Los Angeles, and I lost my condo in the earthquake. And at that time, it just seemed like the biggest disaster in the world. And things were not really good at that time. But as a result of the earthquake, people started going out and rebuilding and hiring jobs, and the economy started to improve. And all of a sudden, business started to get better. And actually, it turned out to be a really good thing. Lots of unrelated things kind of came together, and something positive came out of it at the end. So I say to people, sometimes if something happens, and you just have to have faith and go, you might not see why this is happening right now, but in retrospect, this might turn out to be a good thing, you know?
Yeah.
So you have to be open to that possibility.
Absolutely. I try to go through life of, you know, maybe not everything happens the way that I want it to happen, but it's happening. Everything's kind of happening for my greater good, if that makes sense, you know, like no matter how it happens, it's happening for one day, it's going to have a reason, it's going to have a purpose. So I completely agree with that. The last question I have for you is kind of a fun question. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
One superpower. Psychic abilities to make things move around. You know, one of my other hobbies is motorcycles, and I've decided to rebuild a bike. So I was working yesterday on it, and I was just taking something off, and all of a sudden I realized I hadn't undone something, and I was holding this gas tank, and I'm going, hey, there's a screwdriver right there, and I need to get to the screwdriver, and I can't let this thing go. And you know, it would be great just to turn around and go, screwdriver, and just comes right here.
Right.
That would be cool, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's one that would come in handy many times. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, you're lazy, you're sitting on the couch, you're laying in bed, there's something across the room, super easy.
just yell remote. Boom.
Well, Phil, this has been so great. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your morning to come on the podcast. Like I said, your music has meant a great deal to me over the years, and I was very happy to have you on. So thank you.
I'm very thrilled to hear that. Thank you very much for having me on. It was a real pleasure speaking with you as well, Sydney, and to all of your people and people tuning in. So it was really great. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. And everybody be sure to, of course, stay updated with Last in Line. They're on Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. We'll be putting it in the description so you can keep up with Phil and everything the band's doing. As I mentioned, they are doing live streams every once in a while over on their Facebook page. So if you want to stay up to date with the guys, that's how you do so. And of course, stay up to date with everything that Phil is doing. His new singles coming out hopefully soon. His past singles that were released and everything like that. So
yeah, give them a listen. They're fun.